Shall we begin? Morning. Yes. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am Ahmad Faisal Mohammed, Vice Chair of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People and Permanent Representative of Malaysia to the United Nations. On behalf of His Excellency Khaled, Chair of the Committee, I welcome all members and observers to the 423rd meeting of the committee. The meeting is called to order. The provisional program for this meeting has been shared earlier. If there is no objection, the program is adopted. Before giving the floor to the speakers, I would like to share some remarks on behalf of the committee. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today on 15 May as called by General Assembly Resolution 77/23, 2022, reaffirmed in December 2024 to commemorate the 77th anniversary of the Nakba, a massive forced displacement of over 750,000 Palestinians from their ancestral homes in 1948. That is the Nakba, or catastrophe, which marked the collective trauma of uprooting the entire Palestinian population and leaving them in an endless struggle for a state to call their own. This struggle is still ongoing 77 years later. Over 52,400 people have been killed in Gaza, more than 118,000 injured, and thousands remain trapped beneath the rubble. In the West Bank, over 40,000 Palestinians have been killed, and many have been displaced amid deepening occupation, rising settler violence, and military escalation. These are not mere statistics. They reflect a devastating human tragedy. Since the collapse of the Gaza ceasefire on 18 March, illegal mass evacuation orders have triggered widespread displacement and humanitarian collapse. Communities have been wiped out. Access to food, water, and medical aid has been systematically denied. Mounting evidence points to patterns consistent with ethnic cleansing and crimes against humanity. Forced displacement must be unequivocally rejected. Humanitarian access must be restored without restriction, and the unlawful blockade on Gaza must be lifted to allow life-saving aid to reach civilians. Since 1948, Palestine refugees in the region have been supported by UNRWA, which provided them a lifeline. The agency is now facing tremendous challenges to its operations, leaving many children out of school. UNRWA is also facing financial shortcomings. We call on all UN member states to provide the necessary political support and secure reliable funding to UNRWA. Palestinians have been enduring a prolonged Israeli occupation, which has been determined to be illegal by the International Court of Justice through its advisory opinion of 19 July 2024. The occupation has been enforced through displacement, evictions, demolition of homes, parceling of the Palestinian territory, and denial of fundamental rights. This is the ongoing Nakba. Over the last 19 months, Palestinians in Gaza have been victims of unprecedented attacks by Israel, the occupying power, leaving over 52,400 Gazans dead, deemed by the ICJ as plausible genocide. We call on the occupying power to lift the blockade denying Palestinians in Gaza of basic humanitarian needs and urge the implementation of an immediate and permanent ceasefire as called for in the Security Council Resolution 2735. Only the full recognition of a sovereign and independent Palestinian state as a UN member is the just and lasting solution for the future of millions of Palestinians. Thank you. I now give the floor to Ms. Blanca Montejo, Deputy Chief of Staff, Office of the President of the General Assembly, to deliver remarks on behalf of Mr. Philemon Young. Ms. Montejo, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, salam to all. I thank the organizers for the kind invitation to join you today. One of the first main tasks of the United Nations was to find a just solution to the question of Palestine. For 77 years, the unresolved conflict has been on the agenda of the General Assembly. This is far too long. We are seeing generation after generation live through conflict and despair. Those who came before us believed they would see the resolution of this conflict during their lifetime and a return to peace in the Middle East. Yet here we are, once again, commemorating the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians since 1948. We must do more. The horrors we have witnessed in Gaza for more than 18 months are a stark reminder that we urgently need to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This is a solution that cannot be brought about through endless war and occupation. It is a solution that requires meaningful action by the international community towards the realization of a two-state solution in accordance with international law, the Charter of the United Nations, and relevant United Nations resolutions. Your Excellencies, as you know, Nakba is an Arabic word that means catastrophe, a catastrophe that has been unfolding for decades. It is time to recognize the pain and trauma this catastrophe has brought to the Palestinian people. It is time to recognize that the suffering of civilians on both sides will end only when Israelis and Palestinians are able to live side by side in their own sovereign, independent states, in peace, security, and dignity. As the General Assembly, we must seize every chance to help chart the path towards the two-state solution. The high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution in June, to be chaired by France and Saudi Arabia, will present a crucial opportunity to set a political horizon. The General Assembly's commitment to the two-state solution and the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination has been firm. The United Nations Charter is also clear. All people deserve to live free from violence and intimidation. All deserve to fully enjoy their human rights. This includes Palestinians and Israelis. Together, we must uphold the Charter, General Assembly resolutions, and international law. We must end the catastrophe. We must build a brighter future for the young generations in both Palestine and Israel. And I thank you.
I thank Ms. Montejo for delivering the remarks by the President of the General Assembly, and I thank the President for his support for the Palestinian cause. I believe that Mr. Montejo will have to leave the meeting momentarily for other engagements. Thank you for being with us this morning. I now give the floor to Mr. Khaled Khiari, UN Assistant Secretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Through Resolution 27/23 of 2022, reaffirmed in December 2024, the General Assembly requested the UN Secretariat to commemorate the anniversary of the Nakba, which led to the displacement and dispossession of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Today, more than 5 million registered Palestinian refugees are spread across Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has led to the world's longest refugee crisis. It is a crisis that remains unresolved, shaping identity, lives, and the enduring pursuit of justice and self-determination for the Palestinian people. This event demonstrates the importance the international community attaches to the ongoing plight of Palestinian refugees. Excellencies, the horrific situation we are witnessing today in Gaza is a catastrophe with no end in sight. Since the atrocious terror attacks by Hamas on 7 October 2023 and continued holding of hostages, over 1.9 million Palestinians, more than 85% of Gaza's population, and almost 80% of them Palestinian refugees from 1948, have been forcibly displaced, many repeatedly, some 10 times or more. As the Secretary General has warned, Gaza has now become a humanitarian hellscape. There is no safe place in the street. Forced displacements must be rejected unequivocally. Unrestricted humanitarian access must be ensured, and the blockade on Gaza lifted to allow the flow of life-saving aid in order to prevent the deepening of an already grave humanitarian crisis. International humanitarian law requires the protection of civilians, UN personnel, humanitarian workers, and journalists. Accountability for violations is imperative. In parallel, since early 2025, over 40,000 Palestinians have been displaced in the occupied West Bank due to Israeli military operations, most of them from Palestinian refugee camps in northern West Bank. As affirmed by the International Court of Justice, in its advisory opinion of 19 July 2024, Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and, of course, Gaza, is unlawful and must end. Excellencies, I echo the Secretary General's call on the international community to fully support peace, stability, and the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. International law must be upheld by all parties. The Secretary General has called for an immediate and durable ceasefire, the release of all hostages without delay, and the resumption of credible political negotiations. Steps must also be taken to reverse the negative trends of violence, settlement expansion, and unilateral steps that undermine the Palestinian Authority. I echo the Secretary General's own recent warning that the promise of a two-state solution is at risk of dwindling to the point of disappearance. The upcoming General Assembly mandated International Conference on the two-state solution in June 2025 offers an important opportunity for member states to support a viable two-state solution before it is too late. Peace will require tangible, irreversible, and permanent progress toward the two-state solution, an end to the occupation, and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with Gaza as integral part. A viable sovereign Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security with Israel is critical to achieving peace in the Middle East. Let us build political momentum toward that end. The United Nations remain committed to a multilateral response anchored in human rights, dignity, international law, and shared responsibility. History will judge our response. The suffering of the Palestinian people, including generations of displaced and dispossessed, remains as a stark reminder that the root causes of this conflict have yet to be resolved. The United Nations Charter calls on us to end this conflict and uphold the principles of our organization. Let's act with clarity, determination, and conviction. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank Assistant Secretary General Khiari for participating in this meeting and for delivering important remarks stressing the Secretariat's commitment to finding a peaceful solution to the Palestinian question. I now have the honor to give the floor to His Excellency Minister Riyad Mansour, Permanent Observer of the State of Palestine to the United Nations. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Today, we are commemorating the Nakba Day for the first time since the General Assembly mandated through a resolution that my brother Khaled Khiari referred to commemorate this occasion after 76 years annually through a mandate from the General Assembly. We are grateful for those who voted for that resolution, and we are grateful for all of you who are with us in this room and those who are watching us in all corners of the globe to commemorate the Nakba of the Palestinian people after 76 years and to commemorate the ongoing Nakba as we see it in the genocidal war against our people in the Gaza Strip. I have the honor and privilege to read in Arabic the statement of President Mahmoud Abbas in this occasion. Of course, we have it in English and also in Arabic, and we will put it in the hands of the Secretariat of the Division of Palestinian Rights to circulate it to everyone. خطاب السيد الرئيس محمود عباس.
Statement by His Excellency Mr. Mahmoud Abbas at the United Nations on the anniversary of the Nakba. Ladies and gentlemen, may the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. At the outset, I extend my gratitude and appreciation to you for the historic decision to commemorate the Palestinian Nakba as we mark the passing of its 77th year. This has happened in 1948. The Nakba represented a catastrophe of disasters, the mass murders of Palestinian children, women, and men in more than 50 documented massacres, and the forced displacement by the violence of iron and fire of over half of the Palestinian people from their homeland, crimes which were perpetrated by the Israeli occupying forces against the Palestinian people in 1948. This day, the 15th of May of each year, marks the anniversary of the Nakba. This painful occasion that is still present after being ignored for so many years past. The series of Israeli crimes against our Palestinian people has not stopped. After the catastrophe of the Nakba in 1948 and the confiscation of 78% of the land of historic Palestine, the occupation disaster came in 1967 with the seizure of the remaining territory of Palestine in East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip, and the continuation of its settlement colonization campaign and the land theft, particularly in the West Bank, including Jerusalem, to this very day. Today is very similar to yesterday. What the Israeli occupying forces have been doing for 19 months in full view of the whole world are crimes of genocide, destruction, and starvation, with the aim of displacing our people from the Gaza Strip, in addition to the crime of the continued theft of the land of the State of Palestine in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The number of Palestinian refugees inside Palestine, the neighboring countries, and across the world has reached more than 7 million Palestinian refugees, and their suffering continues, especially in the refugee camps in Gaza, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. What has made the suffering more severe over the past 2 years is the targeting of UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Agency for the Palestinian refugees, and the obstruction of its activities within occupied Palestine. This is a grave violation of international law, depriving our people of basic services such as education and health that cannot be replaced, as well as other essentials of life in Gaza, which are absolutely vital for their survival. The continued denial of the crimes of Zionism and the Israeli occupying forces against our Palestinian people will be of no use. It will not cancel the truth or erase the memory. History is indelible, and justice is not time-bound. Today, we stand before you, not only to commemorate the somber anniversary, but to renew the pledge that the Nakba was not and will not be the permanent and inevitable fate of our people, and that the right of return, the right to self-determination and the independence of the Palestinian state, with East Jerusalem as its capital, are steady and inalienable rights guaranteed by the international law and the UN resolutions, and will not be forsaken by our people and all who stand in solidarity with them throughout history and to the present day. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for real and effective international action to stop this historic injustice and ongoing tragedy, which have become a disgrace to humanity. The war that Israel has been waging on the Gaza Strip for 19 months, which has claimed the lives of tens of thousands of civilians, the majority of whom are women and children, and destroyed their homes and infrastructure and forcibly, repeatedly displaced more than 1.9 million Palestinians within the Strip. This war is merely a continuation of the chapters of a catastrophe, of a Nakba, that has continued unabated since 1948. We stress from this rostrum that we stand ready to undertake our full national responsibilities in the Gaza Strip, as in the West Bank, by the assumption of the State of Palestine, of its political, economic, social, civil, and security responsibilities, ensuring the delivery of humanitarian assistance and the return of the displaced to their areas, consolidating them on their land, implementing the early recovery and reconstruction plan without displacement from Gaza, and mobilizing the necessary international funding at the reconstruction conference in Cairo once a ceasefire is achieved. Above all, we must emphasize the need for the complete withdrawal of the Israeli occupying forces from the Gaza Strip and the establishment of a comprehensive ceasefire across the occupied Palestinian territory, as well as the need to embark on a political process to implement the two-state solution and establish an independent state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital, while realizing the inalienable rights of our people, foremost to live as a free and dignified people in their homeland. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the international community, represented by this United Nations organization, and while working for an immediate stop of the aggression against our people, their land and their sanctities, their holy places, is required today, more than ever, to take concrete steps to provide them with international protection. And in this regard, we look forward with great interest to the convening of the International Peace Conference this coming June in New York to implement the two-state solution in accordance with with resolutions of international legitimacy, and mobilizing efforts to ensure international recognition of the State of Palestine, while also obtaining full membership in the United Nations and bringing an end to the illegal Israeli occupation of the territory occupied since 1967, including East Jerusalem. We also call upon you to continue firmly supporting UNRWA and providing it with the necessary funding, as well as confronting the deceitful attempts to undermine its role as per its General Assembly mandate. UNRWA represents a lifeline for millions of our refugees, a living witness to the Nakba of our people. It is a political responsibility and legal and humanitarian reference for the Palestinian refugee question until a just solution is achieved for them in line with Resolution 194. In closing, and on behalf of the steadfast Palestinian people, and on behalf of more than 15 million Palestinians, including 7 million refugees, we renew our pledge that we will remain adherent to our rights and will continue our legitimate struggle for freedom and independence until they are realized. We will also continue knocking on the doors of justice until accountability is realized for all the crimes perpetrated against our people, until the day of freedom arrives for Palestine, until the legitimate rights are restored to their rightful owners, and until peace, stability, and prosperity are achieved for all across the region. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.
President Mahmoud Abbas, and I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We thank His Excellency Minister Riyad Mansour for delivering the important remarks. We now turn to our last speaker, Ms. Noura Erakat, a Palestinian-American scholar and professor of African Studies and Criminal Justice at Rutgers University. She will share her thoughts on the current situation from a civil society perspective. Ms. Erakat, you have the floor.
Thank you. Today is day 585 of genocide, and every day we witness unprecedented atrocities. 2 days ago, we saw a baby in a red onesie, not yet 1 year old, have both of her tiny legs amputated. We witnessed a missile rip through a hospital to kill a renowned journalist receiving treatment, and learned of the assassination of a 12-year-old boy who witnessed the massacre of 15 paramedics and their burial in a mass grave. Israel has destroyed 92% of Gaza's residential buildings, incapacitated its 36 hospitals, and prevented the entry of food and basic goods. In doing so, it is not only killing Palestinians now, but threatening the possibility of a Palestinian future. A campaign that seeks to obliterate the future of a people is a genocide. Yet, despite these chilling statistics and an ICJ decision indicating its plausibility, there remains controversy as to this basic fact. Why? The most pervasive talking point is that Israel is not targeting Palestinians as a people, but only targeting Hamas. Putting aside significant issues in law and fact that militate against this point, let me just share with you some statistics. What we know so far is that 2% of Palestinians in Gaza have been killed, including over 20,000 children buried and disappeared. The names of those under the age of 1 fill the first 14 pages of a 649-page document. So far, 1,200 entire families have been erased forever from the civil registry. 3 months into the war, the UN humanitarian chief described Gaza as uninhabitable. And since then, the situation has only gotten worse. This certainly exceeds Hamas militants. According to Israel, these horrifying numbers are irrelevant because they are the result, they say, of deliberate human shielding by Hamas. Again, putting aside significant issues of law and fact, let me just share with you the tactics of the army itself. It has sniped children twice above the waist. It has used quadcopters to spray and kill children who are sprawled and injured on the floor. It has destroyed the largest in vitro fertility clinic, including 4,000 embryos. It has executed patients with their hands zip-tied and thrown into mass graves. They have sexually assaulted detainees captured without charge or trial, bombed safe routes where Palestinians were ordered to flee, bombed safe zones where Palestinians were ordered to shelter, tortured medical doctors to death,
destroyed more than half of Gaza's desalination plants, undermining access to clean water, leveled all 4 major universities, attacked factories, libraries, bakeries, heritage sites, 247 mosques, 3 churches, and bulldozed 16 cemeteries. As put by Professor Shireen Sayali, any honest observer of this war understands that the target of Israeli force and US-supplied weapons is the Palestinian civilian. Hamas is the collateral damage. The purpose of this campaign is the destruction of the Palestinian people for the sake of achieving long-term Israeli security, what I term Nakba peace, a violent oxymoron that predicates Jewish Israeli safety on the elimination of Palestinians. In pursuit of its territorial ambitions to achieve unchecked Zionist settler sovereignty, Israel has removed Palestinians for 77 years and counting. It has imposed a permanent military occupation on the West Bank and Gaza for 58 years and counting. And it has besieged 2.3 million Palestinians, who are now possibly only 2 million because of this past 19 months, besieged them for 17 years and counting. What we have been witnessing for the past 585 days is the cruelest and most violent episode of the ongoing Nakba. This did not start on October 7th, nor was it a response to October 7th that provided a useful cover in order to accelerate this massive removal. On October 12, 2023, Agricultural Minister Avi Dichter told us plainly, this is Nakba 2023, a campaign that is evidenced across Palestinian geographies, including in the northern West Bank, where some 40,000 Palestinians have been removed just this year. The Trump administration has adopted this goal in its current bid to build a Gaza Riviera to remove Palestinians to the Sudan, Somalia, or Syria. And most recently, on May 4th, 2025, the Israeli cabinet unanimously voted to reoccupy all of Gaza and ethnically cleanse its remaining inhabitants. This is why the return of more than 300,000 Palestinians to their homes in North Gaza in early 2025 was so incredible. It was the first time in nearly 8 decades of ongoing Nakba that we witnessed the return of Palestinians en masse, a return that embodies the national aspirations of the Palestinian people. As chronicled by Ahmed Aburtima, who marched home, on that day, I walked as I had never walked before, about 15 kilometers nonstop. I entered Gaza City, a dream long cherished during the days of war, now realized. Despite unprecedented cruelty, Palestinians refused to surrender and marched home by foot. This is precisely why Palestinians are racialized as a security threat, because we refuse to disappear. The Nakba is ongoing, and so is Palestinian resistance to our elimination. There is sufficient law to end the genocide, to lift the blockade, to end the occupation, and to realize Palestinian self-determination. Had international law ever been enough, however, Palestinian refugees would be growing their families and their gardens on their original lands rather than searching for the remains of flesh of their babies beneath the rubble. Remarkably, the time of genocide has also been a moment of significant judicial strides furthering Palestinian liberation. In January 2024, the International Court of Justice determined that Israel's campaign was plausible genocide. In May 2024, it issued another provisional measure ordering the withdrawal from Rafah. That same month, the International Criminal Court finally issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. In July 2024, the ICJ issued an advisory opinion determining that Israel's presence in the West Bank and Gaza is unlawful, ordering it to withdraw its settlers and military from the territory and to provide reparations for the Palestinian people. Last month, the ICJ heard an argument on the legality of banning UNRWA, the UN Refugee Agency responsible for humanitarian relief, and now banned amid a starvation campaign that has killed 57 children in 2 months. This is not a legal controversy. It is a political one. The United States, among other states, has wrung its hands behind judicial rulings, but this is selective deference to the court. In its last days of office, the Biden administration recognized there's a genocide of the Masalit ethnic tribe in Darfur by the Rapid Support Forces. When asked whether they can use the same standards to make that decision to adjudicate Israel's campaign in Gaza, the U.S. Ambassador at Large for Global Criminal Justice said, quote, "It will ultimately be for the ICJ judges to decide," with zero irony, that they did not have to submit their evidence on the Sudan before the ICJ. This is not a legal controversy. This is a political one. The selective deference to the ICJ on the question of genocide of Palestinians is an attempt to deflect responsibility, and the ongoing counter-revolution against activists globally is an attempt to revise a history of the present. Since 2020, an emerging consensus among legacy human rights organizations and the World Court have defined Israel as an apartheid regime. Rather than boycott, divest from, and sanction apartheid Israel, the global community has attempted to normalize it. 5 years later, we see the danger of allowing that exception. Apartheid and genocide are on the same continuum. The three of the specific acts conducted to maintain apartheid are identical to the acts committed to commit genocide. In the former, for apartheid, they are done for the purpose of domination. In the latter, they are done with the intent to destroy. Genocide is the logical outcome of any project to conquer and settle the land upon which and other people live, unless it is checked. Many of you here, many of you, have either survived colonialism or are the ancestors of those who have survived colonialism, and you are painfully aware of its legacies. That's why in 1974, this body firmly resolved that Palestinians are a juridical people. Palestinians exist and deserve to exist by relegating Palestine to a bilateral political issue beyond the reach of international norms. You have steadily normalized occupation. By failing to apply sanctions and engage in boycott, many of you have normalized apartheid. And now, by failing to act, you are at risk of normalizing genocide. But if you normalize genocide, you will have nothing left. If it is permissible to deny a people exist, to cage them, to subject them to systematic warfare, then to use AI technology to bomb them at unprecedented rates in their homes, to burn them alive in tents, to experiment on them with suicide drones, to deny them medical care, to allow premature babies to rot in NICU units, and mamas be denied anesthetic to have C-sections, to starve them while their food decays in miles of aid trucks, all without consequence, and worse, while insisting that their lives are secondary, if not altogether insignificant, relative to Zionist settler sovereignty, then I promise you that no one is safe. As put by Colombian President Gustavo Petro, Gaza is a rehearsal for the rest of the world. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich recently said that the victory in the war would mean the full destruction of Gaza and the displacement of its residents. He has also boasted that Israelis, quote, are finally going to conquer the Gaza Strip. We are no longer afraid of the word occupation. Smotrich's audacity is our failure. You must make it impossible for Smotrich and anyone else to boast of conquest through genocide in the 21st century. Make those who speak it have to say it in hushed whispers in closed rooms rather than boast about that conquest. But let us speak honestly. Most of you fear US retribution. The genocide in Gaza is one of the major atrocities of our time, and most people in the world are against it. Our inability to stop it reflects an international system where the equality of nation states remains an aspirational principle. It might be good for us to remember, the United States is an empire, but the United States is not the world. In this precise moment, US lawmakers welcomed the international war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu into the White House. US lawmakers and universities welcomed Minister of National Security Itamar Ben-Gvir, who was disqualified from military service because of his affiliation with the Kahan movement, declared a terrorist organization by the US and Israel. Can you imagine being so extreme that you cannot serve in the Israeli army? The same army that sprays 5.5-year-old girls with 335 bullets and executes 15 paramedics and buries them along with their ambulances in a mass grave? The Israeli army wouldn't have Ben-Gvir, but US lawmakers and several US universities embraced him, just as they colluded to kidnap, disappear, and deport students. Do not look west for moral or political leadership. The United States has long absconded on that position. Do not let the United States and Israel upend the global system. In its defense of Israel, the United States threatens the entire legal structure established since the Second World War. In just 19 months, the US has vetoed 5 ceasefire resolutions to end this genocide, despite the extraordinary invocation of Article 99 by the UN Secretary General and 2 invocations of Uniting for Peace resolutions. Both the Biden and Trump administration have denigrated the ICJ. US National Security spokesman John Kirby described the ICJ case on the Genocide Convention as, quote, meritless, counterproductive, and completely without any basis in fact whatsoever. Our world court is being denigrated. The primary judicial organ of this body is being denigrated by those who claim global leadership. The US is not even a signatory to the Rome Statute, which established the International Criminal Court, but the Trump administration has passed an executive order to place sanctions on the prosecutor and anyone who cooperates with the court. In October 2024, 107 members of Congress threatened to cease financial support to the UN if it unseated Israel, literally threatening its budget for doing your job. What is the purpose of the UN if it cannot stop a genocide and prevent the calculated starvation of 2 million people? The international community has failed many times before and at great cost. One of the most significant times was in 1936, when the League of Nations allowed Mussolini's fascist Italy to invade Ethiopia, an independent member state of the League. Then, the League imposed cosmetic sanctions rather than an oil embargo to stop the war. It tolerated Italy's use of chemical weapons and described Ethiopia's people's war as human shielding. The consequence of racist imperialism was ultimately the dissolution of the League of Nations. The UN was born of this failure. It was born of the commitment to not let atrocities of genocide, from Namibia to the Armenian genocide to the Holocaust, happen again. It is that commitment that is at stake today. If you do not stand up and speak out, this very system will be a casualty of the US-Israel genocidal war on Palestine and the Palestinian people. Today, we do not need the United Nations to be a powerful symbol of international cooperation. We need your collective action to simply be powerful. In this moment, we have many choices. We can acknowledge Israel's campaign as genocide and impose an arms embargo, block the ports, sever diplomatic ties, sever all civilian and military trade, impose cultural and academic boycotts, and unseat Israel for its obstinate transgressions. If genocide is too much, you can confront this atrocity as a war. Specifically, a colonial war against a racist regime and alien occupation, regulated with the additional protocols and customary laws of war that recognize the captives as POWs, ensure them humane treatment, recognize Palestinian militants as combatants, permit third-party intervention. We can use the law to protect hospitals and schools and shelters, to protect the journalists and doctors and aid workers, to forcibly open the humanitarian corridors and abide by the ICC arrest warrants to arrest Netanyahu and Gallant upon arrival. If war is too much, you can confront this atrocity as a humanitarian tragedy. And you can send in a peacekeeping mission to protect Palestinians who have been denied the right to self-defense for nearly 8 decades. And if humanitarian tragedy is too much, you can find a way to have mercy on the Palestinian children, the ones who have been pulled from the rubble with 2 limbs and no family, and find themselves in a cage without food or water. Do not sit in the seat of power and do nothing. The United States is an empire, but the United States is not the world. You are the world. Each and every one of you has the capacity to halt this charade, to fulfill the minimal mandate of protecting a people's right to exist. Individually, you are each someone's ancestor, and you will be an ancestor to someone. Our time on this earth is ephemeral, and I implore you to give it meaning. As the Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish reminds us, we are not the most chosen people in the world, but no one is more chosen than us. You cannot abandon Palestine without betraying your legacy, your progeny, and yourself. May we transform this world into a place worthy of our children. May you be protected, may you be strong, may we be victorious. Free Palestine, and may Palestine free us all. Thank you.
We thank Ms. Erakat for sharing her very clear, powerful, and extremely compelling critical insights on the plight of the Palestinian people. Thank you. This concludes our list of presenters. I now open the floor for interventions by member states. There is no pre-inscribed speakers list. Please indicate your interest to intervene by pressing the microphone button. First I see on the list is Egypt. I invite the distinguished representative of Egypt to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Riyad Mansour, my brother, ASG Khiari, I greet you all. I thank Dr. Noura Erakat for this excellent presentation and a realistic depiction of the reality. Egypt values the efforts of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People and its continued support for these rights, and reminding that there is a Palestinian people, a proud Palestinian people that have rights, and the rights will be restored. We commemorate the Nakba, which is a very painful memory, not just for Palestinians, for all Arabs, for all Muslims, and for every human being with a conscience. And on this painful occasion, we reiterate before all of you the principal positions of Egypt, the leadership and the government and the people of Egypt in support of the Palestinian people to attain the rights and to liberate their state, and for Palestine to be a full-fledged member of the United Nations as any other nation in the world. Mr. Chair, Egypt, since the early days of the Nakba and to date, to lift the historical injustice against the Palestinian people, and to create a political horizon to end the occupation and to liberate the territory of Palestine on the 4th of June, borders with East Jerusalem as its border. Egypt has provided political and humanitarian support to the brotherly people of Palestine, and we have led the efforts to end the aggression. And as we speak, we are part of the mediation to end the brutal war by the occupying power Israel against the defenseless Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Egypt, since the first day of the brutal war on October 7 towards an immediate ceasefire and the delivery of humanitarian aid and receiving critical medical cases. And as we speak, we are working for the release of the hostages and detainees. And we are in coordination with Palestine working on a recovery plan and the reconstruction of Gaza, a plan that was adopted by the League of Arab States and the OIC. And very soon, once there is a ceasefire, we will host a conference to mobilize funds and for pledging towards the Arab and Islamic recovery and reconstruction plan. And we look forward to the two-state solution conference co-chaired by France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in coordination with Palestine. We stress the rights of Palestine and the Palestinian people until all the rights are restored. I thank you.
I thank the permanent representative of Egypt. Next, I invite the permanent representative of Jordan.
Mr. Chair, I would like to thank you. I thank the members of the committee for holding this annual commemoration that reminds us all of what befell the Palestinian people since 1948 and the Nakba of the Palestinian people due to the forced displacement of the Palestinian people and the exercise of all forms and acts of torture, killing, and displacement in a violation of the Palestinian people's rights to self-determination. After so many decades, the international community needs to find its unity to support the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and to establish its state on their national land with East Jerusalem as its capital. This is one of the simplest rights for the Palestinian people, their right to live, their right to have their dignity fulfilled. And we all need to support this goal and its achievement. The UN, and for decades, has supported the cause of the Palestinian people. However, the means of implementation do not exist. Unfortunately, this is a reality, and we need to change this reality. The Security Council so far has failed. Despite many resolutions on the question of Palestine, has failed to implement any of its resolutions, even partially. And we need to look into other mechanisms for implementation so that we can see the aspirations of the Palestinian people met to establish their independent state on their national land with East Jerusalem as its capital. And Jordan will continue to support this right as we have always done. And we will make every effort to make this a reality. God willing, we support you, we support the committee and Palestine to achieve its aspirations. And the most important and the first issue to address is the recognition of the Palestinian state by all the member states of the United Nations. And the General Assembly needs to grant Palestine full-fledged membership. There are procedures that need to be taken in the near future. This includes the two-state solution conference that will be held next June, co-chaired by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France. We need to send a clear message during this conference on how to realize all these aspirations. I thank you.
I thank the permanent representative of Jordan. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of China.
Chair, I thank the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People for organizing today's commemoration. 77 years ago, more than half of the Palestinian people were expelled or fled from their homes during the Arab-Israeli War, and they have since embarked on the arduous journey of striving for their legitimate rights and interests. Today, 77 years later, the historical injustices suffered by the Palestinian people have not only remained unaddressed, but have worsened. The war in Gaza has raged on for 19 months, claiming the lives of more than 53,000 Gazans and leaving the once beautiful cities and towns in ruins. Israel's escalating siege on Gaza has led to an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe for 2 million people who face the threat of forced relocation. The continued expansion of settlements in the West Bank and the intensifying settler violence have relentlessly squeezed the space for the Palestinian people and eroded the basis of the two-state solution. The question of Palestine, at the core of the Middle East, is important to the region's peace, stability, and long-term security. The implementation of the two-state solution is the only viable way to resolve the question. The imperative now is to immediately realize a lasting ceasefire in Gaza and alleviate the humanitarian disaster. Israel must implement the Security Council and the GA resolutions, comply with the ICJ's provisional measures and advisory opinion, immediately cease all military attacks and violations of international law, especially IHL, lift the blockade of Gaza, stop settlement activities in the West Bank, and curb settler violence. The major powers with significant influence over the parties concerned should uphold an impartial and objective position, take tangible action to calm the fighting in Gaza and ease tensions in the West Bank. Chair, on the question of Palestine, China, upholding fairness and justice, remains steadfast in its support for the just cause of the Palestinian people to restore their legitimate national rights, for the early establishment of a fully sovereign and independent state of Palestine based on 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, and for the early admission of the state of Palestine as a full member of the UN. China supports the Gaza Recovery and Reconstruction Plan jointly launched by Egypt and the Arab countries and looks forward to the high-level conference on the two-state solution to be held by France and Saudi Arabia in June, which will give new impetus to its implementation. China will continue to work tirelessly with all peace-loving countries to promote the implementation of the two-state solution and to realize a comprehensive, just, and lasting solution to the question of Palestine at an early date so that Nakba Day will forever remain in the past. Thank you, Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of China. Now I invite the permanent representative of Guyana to take the floor.
Mr. Chair, thank you for convening today's commemoration and my appreciation to all the speakers in this opening session. Chair, the Nakba remains one of the most profound markers in history of loss, injustice, and violence. However, a greater tragedy is the fact that the illegalities of the Nakba have been unaddressed close to 8 decades. Equally tragic is that these very illegalities continue to be perpetrated even today, as the Palestinian people experience dispossession and displacement on a daily basis, characterized by demolition of property, attacks on civilians, and evictions from their own land. In the face of this ongoing injustice, the international community, including the United Nations, must continue its strong advocacy to end the Israeli occupation of Palestine, in accordance with the July 2024 advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice and relevant resolutions adopted by the United Nations. That occupation, as in all situations where people's right to self-determination has been denied, has frozen the Palestinian people's right to live in peace and dignity in their independent state. The occupation remains an affront to all that the United Nations was built on, and Guyana urges our collective efforts to end this system that has held an entire nation hostage for close to 8 decades. Allow me to underscore 3 critical steps that we must pursue at this juncture with the objective of ending the Nakba once and for all. First, the ongoing violations of international law must no longer be carried out with impunity. We must ensure full accountability. The international system will continue to be eroded and even risk collapse if there continues to be an uneven application of the legal norms and standards that we have collectively developed. We take this opportunity to call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and for the end of Israel's hostilities in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Second, there must be redress for all the wrongs perpetrated against the Palestinian people. Redress begins with the exercise of the right to return and Israel's withdrawal to the pre-1967 lines. Third, we can no longer delay the establishment of the independent state of Palestine. The majority of member states have recognized the state of Palestine and were prepared to admit it as a full UN member state last year. It is highly regrettable that the will of the majority did not prevail. But we must not give up. We must never give up. Guyana therefore looks forward to the June conference for clear actions towards the two-state solution. Guyana remains in full solidarity with the Palestinian people and support their just cause. I thank you.
I thank the permanent representative of Guyana. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Bolivia to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The plurinational state of Bolivia joins this commemoration of the anniversary of the Nakba, which marked the beginning of the forced displacement and dispossession of the Palestinian people in 1948. Now, today, 76 years later, more than 7 million Palestinian refugees continue to be deprived of their right to return, and the suffering of the Palestinian people continues under occupation, blockade, violence, and denial of their fundamental rights. The Nakba is not simply a memory of the past, it is an open wound of the in the present. It is the cries of a mother who's lost her house. It is the youth living in the rubble. It manifests in each illegal settlement that is built, in each demolished house, and in each right that is denied to an entire people. Bolivia strongly condemns these crimes and reiterates its unconditional support for the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and to live in a free, sovereign, and independent state. Justice cannot be the privilege of some, and impunity cannot be a punishment for the weak. Nakba is at the heart of the suffering of the Palestinian people, demands that we act with humanity and not to look away. We cannot allow for the pain of an entire people to continue to be silenced by the indifference of the world. Bolivia, through the voice of its people and the memory of its own combat, will continue to raise the voice for Palestine, for true peace, and for justice that heals, and for the dignity of the entire Palestinian people. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Bolivia. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Turkey to take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I also thank the speakers for their remarks. Today, we gather in solemn recognition of Nakba, the catastrophe, marking the mass displacement of Palestinians in 1948 and the enduring trauma that has followed generations since. We stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and support them in their search for accountability, justice, equality, and peace. The Nakba is not a moment in history confined to the past. Its impacts are ongoing, felt through continued displacement and the struggle for justice and self-determination. Since October 7, we have often heard that the Palestinians are going through another Nakba. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has entered its most severe phase in decades, causing unprecedented human loss and hindering the pursuit of a two-state solution. The international community must act urgently to enforce a ceasefire in Gaza, ensure unimpeded humanitarian access, support UNRWA, and back reconstruction efforts in coordination with the Arab Plan. After decades of efforts, it is evident that the two-state solution remains the only viable path to achieving peace, justice, and lasting stability in the region. In this context, the upcoming June conference offers a unique and timely opportunity to pursue a just and comprehensive resolution to the conflict. We place our trust in the leadership of Saudi Arabia and France in guiding this process, and we call on the international community to reaffirm its commitment to the two-state solution and to take meaningful, concrete steps to help bring this vision to life. Turkey will continue to work towards a political solution based on the two-state vision. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Turkey. Next, I invite the permanent representative of Saudi Arabia to take the floor. Excellency.
In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, I would like at the outset to extend my sincere thanks to the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People for holding this special occasion and meeting, which marks a painful memory in the conscience of humanity and marks the beginning of continuing suffering of the Palestinian people since 1948. This memory is not just confined to reminding us of a painful point in history, but it's a constant reminder of the constant suffering of the Palestinian people for more than 70 years. The Nakba resulted in mass displacement and dispossession of Palestinians who are deprived of their basic rights, including the right of return and living in dignity on their land. This catastrophe is vivid as we see today, and the Palestinian people are undergoing political and economic and humanitarian challenges. Commemorating the Nakba highlights the need to work tirelessly towards a solution to restore the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. The Kingdom stresses the need for the international community to shoulder its responsibilities and to support the efforts towards ending this prolonged conflict to guarantee security and stability in the region. Mr. Chair, the position of the Kingdom vis-à-vis the question of Palestine has been principled and steadfast and has not changed. It is the central question for the Kingdom and the Arab and Islamic worlds. It is one of the most longest conflicts in modern history. The Palestinian people have been violated on a comprehensive level that included blockade, continued aggression, and displacement, and the current suffering in the Gaza Strip, which has led to a catastrophic, unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe. In this regard, the Kingdom expresses its concern about the continued Israeli aggression in Gaza, which has led to the killing of more than 52,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children, and tens of thousands who have been injured, and the almost full destruction of the civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, schools, and shelter. The Kingdom also condemns the continued illegal settlement activity in East Jerusalem and the plans for forced displacement, which is a violation of international law and undermines the chances of peace intentionally. Here we work in cooperation with the Republic of France to organize an international conference next June to work towards peace and the two-state solution. In accordance with the resolutions of international legitimacy, we stress that the comprehensive and lasting peace requires addressing the root causes of the conflict and bringing justice for the Palestinian people through ending conflict and violations and supporting international efforts to bring peace and stability in the region. In closing, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia reiterates that it will continue to support the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people and the establishment of their independent state on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, and we call for concerted international effort towards just and lasting peace, security, and stability in the region. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Saudi Arabia. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Malaysia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. Thank you as well to Ms. Noura Erakat for her powerful briefing. Mr. Chair, today marks the 77th anniversary of the 1948 Nakba. Instead of commemorating a dark chapter in the past, the Palestinian people are being forced to go through this horrific episode today. The UN Special Committee to investigate Israeli practices affecting the human rights of the Palestinian people and other Arabs of the occupied territories, of which you, Mr. Chair, are a member, recently published an end-of-mission statement following a visit to Amman, which stated that, and I quote, Israel continues to inflict unimaginable suffering on the people living under its occupation, whilst rapidly expanding confiscation of land as part of its wider colonial aspirations, unquote. And I quote again, what we are witnessing could very well be another Nakba, unquote. It is evidently clear that Israel seeks to erase Palestine by dehumanizing Palestinians, forcibly displacing them from their homes, and appropriating their land. Its leaders unashamedly call for a second Nakba of the Palestinians. Its government is actively dismantling UNRWA, a UN agency mandated by the General Assembly and witness to the plight of the Palestinian refugees. Its military is brazenly violating international humanitarian law by murdering humanitarians and targeting whatever remaining civilian infrastructure, providing life-saving services to Palestinians. Yet, the international community appears to only be able to watch helplessly as the genocide against Palestinians unfold before our eyes. Holding Israel accountable for its grave violations of international law is long overdue. Enough evidence has been gathered and presented for all of us to see. The question before us now is, what is the international community's decisive response to prevent another Nakba of the Palestinian people and stop the genocidal actions of Israel? In the absence of punitive actions imposed by the Security Council, states, in their individual capacity or collectively, can also undertake measures to pressure Israel to cease its atrocities against Palestinians and to pursue a path of peace. These should include, but are not limited to, the cessation of exports and imports of arms, munitions, and weapon systems to and from Israel, severing all economic relations with the settlement enterprise, and imposing sanctions against settlers and the settlement regime as a whole. Mr. Chair, the situation on the ground in the occupied Palestinian territory warrants our immediate attention and action. The high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution this June can and must be a pivotal point to reverse the attempts by Israel to alter the status quo on the ground. Malaysia will continue to speak in defense of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination and will work closely with other members of the committee and the wider UN membership towards achieving the independence of the state of Palestine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Malaysia. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Namibia to take the floor.
Thank you for giving Namibia the floor to address this gathering during a critical moment in the lives of the Palestinian people as they continue to fight for their basic rights. Today, as we reflect on the theme, international action towards ending Nakba and realizing the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, we are reminded that the Nakba is a continuing reality. The forced displacement, dispossession, and occupation has continued for 77 years. For the Palestinian people, the Nakba is lived daily as they endure military brutality through the disproportionate use of force, killing of civilians, the use of starvation as a method of warfare, the demolition of homes and civilian infrastructure, the ensuing humanitarian crises, and the persistent denial of their fundamental human rights. Namibia knows the cost of injustice. We have emerged from our own long struggle against colonial domination and apartheid. It is from this history that we derive our engagement on the Palestinian question. The people of Palestine have suffered for far too long, and they deserve peace. Their rights must be upheld alongside those of the Israelis. We therefore call for sustained political will from Israel and all member states to revive a credible peace process that has as its core the fundamental rights of the people of Palestine. We further call for an immediate ceasefire in the current 19-month-long conflict to end the untold suffering. The upcoming June 2025 high-level international conference on Palestine offers such an opportunity to restore justice and peace for the Palestinian people. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Namibia. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Venezuela.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We are grateful for the convening of this meeting to commemorate yet another anniversary of the disaster that for over 77 years has been suffered by the heroic Palestinian people who's been displaced and uprooted from their homeland since 1948. We also are grateful for all the interventions of those who spoke in the opening segment of this meeting. Mr. Chairman, 77 years have elapsed since hundreds of millions of Palestinians were uprooted from their ancestral lands, their homes destroyed, and their communities destroyed. For the Palestinian people, the Nakba is not only a historic moment, but rather a daily reality of exile, occupation, and systemic injustice. It is the daily experience of millions of men, women, and children who continue to be denied their most basic rights, including the right of return, the right to free determination, and the right to live in peace and with dignity. With this in mind, allow me to reiterate the firm support and unshakable solidarity of the people and government of Venezuela for the just Palestinian cause. Guided by the most elementary principles of international law, human rights, and the dignity of all peoples, we would like to reiterate our wholehearted support for the inalienable rights of Palestine and its legitimate aspiration to establish an independent and sovereign state with East Jerusalem as its capital within the pre-1967 borders. The fight of the Palestinian people is a fight for humanity. This is why we would like to express the hope so that the upcoming international high-level conference under the auspices of the General Assembly moves us closer to that goal in that direction and makes it possible to make a reality once and for all the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people based on the two-state solution and the definitive integration of Palestine as a fully fledged member of the United Nations. Mr. Chairman, the Nakba reminds us of the urgent need to move towards a much-needed process of accountability to put an end to the prevailing cycle of impunity. Justice cannot be postponed and should not be compromised. This historic moment calls for us to reflect and reminds us of the moral responsibility of the international community to defend the principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter and to demand that those who violate its precepts be judged for their actions, even when they especially when this is part of a clear policy of aggression geared towards exterminating an entire people. We'd like to reiterate our rejection of the policies of occupation, settlement, and apartheid that continue to aggravate day after day the suffering of the Palestinian people. We denounce the illegal expansion of settlements, the blockade of Gaza, the displacement of families, and of all the forms of collective punishment that violate international humanitarian law. Today, as we honor the memory of the Nakba, together with the Palestinian people in its continued combat, we would like to make an appeal to all nations to step up their efforts in the search for a just and lasting peace, a peace rooted in dignity, sovereignty, and the right to self-determination. The Palestinian cause is the cause of free peoples. It is a cause that responds to the universal yearning for freedom, justice, and a future in which no people lives under occupation, oppression, or domination. Mr. Chairman, I conclude by reaffirming the historic commitment of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to the noble Palestinian people. We will continue raising our voice in all international forums until justice prevails, until the Nakba ceases to be a reality in the present and becomes a memory superseded by peace, dignity, and freedom. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Venezuela. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Brazil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Minister Mansour, colleagues. Today, we remember the pain and injustice imposed on generations of Palestinians. As others have said, the Nakba is much more than a tragic historical event. It is an ongoing catastrophe. Not only are its consequences still felt today by millions, but also Palestinians continue to be forcibly displaced throughout the occupied territory of the Palestinian state. In Gaza, repeated evacuation orders, including the latest and most sweeping one in Gaza City, often affect the same people over and over again. It is a present-day, unending Nakba. In the West Bank, tens of thousands have been progressively displaced over the years, and especially in recent months. Brazil strongly condemns all forms of forced displacement of Palestinians from their lands. It is illegal and severely undermines prospects for sustainable peace and threatens the viability of this two-state solution, which is paramount to bring lasting peace for both Palestinians and Israelis and for the entire region as well. The scale of suffering, destruction, and forced displacement witnessed in recent months must not be banalized or accepted. The conflict and the persistent violation of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, particularly the right to self-determination, must end. For this to happen, the international community must act with much more resolve, effectiveness, and urgency in complying with its obligation not to recognize as legal the situation arising from the unlawful presence of Israel in the occupied territory of the Palestinian state, promoting the realization of the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination, and ensuring accountability for crimes committed against the Palestinian people. Brazil is committed to actively contributing to the success of the upcoming high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution. It constitutes a timely and crucial opportunity to reaffirm the international consensus around the two-state solution and to take meaningful and concrete steps towards its implementation. With that in mind, Brazil reaffirms its unwavering support for the two-state solution based on the 1967 borders, with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security, and with East Jerusalem as the capital of a sovereign, independent, and viable state of Palestine. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Brazil. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We also thank the distinguished speakers for their remarks. Excellencies, dear colleagues, today we solemnly commemorate the 77th anniversary of the Nakba, the catastrophic event that marked the mass displacement and dispossession of the Palestinian people. This day is a painful reminder of the enduring injustice suffered by generations of Palestinians and a solemn occasion to reaffirm our collective commitment to the realization of their inalienable rights. The Nakba was not a singular event. It marked the beginning of a deliberate and systematic campaign to erase a people from their land, culture, and history. Palestinians were forcibly expelled from their homes, villages were destroyed or depopulated, and an entire nation was scattered across refugee camps and exile. This historic injustice remains unresolved, with millions of Palestinian refugees today still awaiting the justice promised to them by the international community. Even as we gather today, the Nakba remains an ongoing reality. In the West Bank, over 40,000 Palestinians have been uprooted since January, the largest such displacement since 1967. This silent Nakba is marked by escalating settler violence, military raids, and a relentless expansion of illegal settlements. Israel's annexation policies, now extended even to Gaza, demonstrate a clear intent to erase Palestinian identity and sever any remaining territorial integrity and contiguity in flagrant defiance and violation of international law. In Gaza, the suffering has reached catastrophic proportions. More than 52,000 people have perished since October 2023. After more than 9 weeks of total blockade, indiscriminate bombardment from air, land, and sea, and a devastating escalation of ground operations, the territory lies in ruins. Mr. Chair, Pakistan emphasizes that a permanent and unconditional ceasefire is essential. Resolution 2735 of the Security Council must be fully implemented across the occupied Palestinian territory, including the West Bank. Unimpeded, impartial, and unconditional humanitarian aid must be allowed in. These are not privileges. These are preconditions, basic preconditions for survival of human life. History has shown that ending the violence without ending the occupation only invites future cycles of conflict. The Palestinian people deserve a credible, irreversible political path forward toward a sovereign, independent, contiguous, and a viable state of Palestine based on the 1967 borders with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital. In this context, the upcoming June conference on the realization of the two-state solution, co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia, represents a critical opportunity. It must deliver tangible outcomes, a clear timeline for Palestinian statehood, a freeze and reversal of settlement expansion, concrete measures to protect civilians and holy sites, and full, equal, and rightful membership of Palestine in the United Nations. Mr. Chair, Pakistan firmly believes that sustainable peace in the Middle East cannot be built on the normalization of occupation. More than 75 years of failure have shown one immutable truth: peace cannot exist with occupation. Justice cannot thrive under apartheid, and stability cannot take root where millions remain stateless. The world knows what must be done. We know the ultimate path to peace, having endorsed the framework for a just settlement of a Palestinian question in numerous resolutions over the decades. Mr. Chair, Pakistan stands in unwavering solidarity with the Palestinian people. We reaffirm our commitment to their struggle for freedom, justice, and dignity. The international community must not merely acknowledge the Palestinian tragedy, but actively work to rectify it. As long as injustice prevails, our solidarity must remain steadfast. For the cause of Palestine is a cause of humanity and universal justice. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Pakistan. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Cuba.
Señor Presidente.
Mr. Chairman, we're grateful for convening of this important meeting. We commemorate another anniversary of the Palestinian Nakba, when in 1948 hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced by force from their homes and their lands, an extermination that continues today under Israeli bombs. This monumental injustice has counted on the complicity and the financial, political, and military and logistical support of the government of the United States, which seeks to force the exit of the Palestinians from their lands with the clear goal of usurping those lands indefinitely. This is clearly unacceptable. We would like to express our strongest condemnation for the forced displacement of the Palestinian population from the territory that belongs to them. We condemn in the strongest terms the killing of civilians, especially of children, women, and humanitarian workers of the United Nations system. Indiscriminate bombing, including against refugee camps, the destruction of housing, hospitals, and civilian infrastructure, as well as the deprivation of basic services, water, electricity, and fuel to the Palestinian people, which significantly compound the precarious humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. 52,928 Palestinians have been killed by Israel. 500,000 are on the verge of famine due to the Israeli blockade of humanitarian aid. 71,000 children younger than 5 years old are at risk of suffering acute malnutrition. There can be no doubt about genocide. We reiterate the urgent need for a broad, just and lasting solution to Israeli-Palestinian conflict on the basis of two-state solution that allows the Palestinian people to exercise their right to free determination and to obtain an independent and sovereign state within the pre-1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as their capital, and that also guarantees the right of return of refugees. We reiterate the appeal for an immediate ceasefire as an urgent priority. The Security Council must act without further delay. Palestine must be admitted immediately as a fully fledged member of the United Nations. Humanitarian aid must reach those in need. The humanitarian blockade must be lifted unconditionally. With this in mind, we reiterate the support for the work of UNRWA, which has been essential in providing assistance to the Palestinian people. The international community must take concrete steps to achieve these goals. The international conference in June is an opportunity for the international community to take concrete steps aimed at stopping the genocide and the attempts at annexation, an opportunity to advocate for an end to Israeli occupation and for independence and full sovereignty of the Palestinian state, and to implement the two-state solution, which means advocating for peace, security, and prosperity of humanity. We hope that our dreams for the Palestinian people do not end once again wind up diluted. Cuba would like to reiterate its solidarity with Palestine. Our position is clear and has never changed. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Cuba. Next, I invite the distinguished permanent representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Thank you.
You have the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Nakba Day was indeed a disastrous catastrophe that befell not just Palestine but the whole world and humanity. Palestinian people were uprooted on that day from their ancestral homes, forcibly displaced, persecuted collectively, denied of their fundamental rights, including those as the rightful owners of their own land. Yet, that was not the end of catastrophe, but unfortunately just the beginning. From that day up until now, the Palestinian people have constantly been victimized, persecuted, deprived of their homeland, and suffered immense and unspeakable injustice. The Nakba Day did not stop, but has exacerbated over decades. Nakba Days is ongoing forever, 77 years now. The current catastrophic situation in Palestine is self-evident and needs no elaboration, as the world is well cognizant of the magnitude of appalling brutality of the Israeli regime, committing atrocious crime, including genocide and war crimes. As we are convened in this meeting, the Israeli regime, with the aid and assistance of United States, is deliberately targeting hospitals, schools, women, children, UN staff, journalists, and so forth, which has led to death of 60,000 of people and much higher number injured, missing, and still under rubble. Evidence of egregious crime of the regime are abundant and undeniable. The International Court of Justice and other relevant courts are fully aware of the extent of savagery of the regime. Mr. Chair, notwithstanding throughout these decades and even nowadays, Palestinian people have been enduring another form of grave injustice, and that is a false narrative propagated by the Israeli regime and its supporters, especially the United States, that they aim to change the place of victims and culprit, to hypocritically call for the peace in the region, but in fact expand the scale of genocide and aggression, to claim the importance of human rights, but actually grossly violate such rights of Palestinians, to claim freedom of speech, but eventually suppressing innocent people who call for ending the carnage, to claim freedom of information, but in reality whitewash the horrendous crimes of the Israeli regime. That is exactly why Nakba Day should be remembered. It should be commemorated to bear the mind that the Israel, which has been implanted on the basis of occupation, apartheid, and terror, would only plague the region and the world with death and destruction, as we witness in plain sight today. To reaffirm that the true and rightful owners of the Palestinian or the Palestinian people as a whole, irrespective of their religion, and that they should return to their homeland. At the end, I seize the opportunity to remember the day once again, somberly, in the name of all Palestinians who lost their lives in defending their beloved Palestine, and to reiterate continued solidarity of the Islamic Republic of Iran with the Palestinian people. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Tunisia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the briefers and the committee. Once again, we support your work. Mr. Chair, the 77th commemoration of the Nakba is an opportunity to remember the courage of the Palestinian people in fighting the injustice for decades to achieve their legitimate demands to live in an independent and sovereign state on the Palestinian territory. This commemoration is held as the genocide continues and the oppression and blockade on Gaza continue. Israel continues to target all the basic life services to Palestinians without any accountability. in a blatant violation and unprecedented violations of all international instruments and legal operations. We stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people, which is fighting alone the oppression of the occupation and the violence of its military, while the international community stands idly by. This brotherly people is going through another massacre that is unprecedented in its continued plight to restore its land and its legitimate historic rights. We would like to express our solidarity to the Palestinian people in their fight to enjoy their inalienable rights. We reaffirm our position towards the Palestinian brothers and sisters to ensure their self-determination and recover their legitimate rights while establishing their state with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital. My country will continue to fight for international and humanitarian legitimacy, and we will continue to fight for the Palestinian cause and providing support to every initiative to reach a just and comprehensive solution that will restore the rights to their bearers and achieve stability and security in the region. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The distinguished representative of Tunisia. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of Qatar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the outset, allow me to express, on behalf of the State of Qatar, our sincere appreciation to the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People for convening this important meeting to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Palestinian Nakba. We commend the tireless efforts of the Committee and the Secretariat in keeping the just cause of the Palestinian people at the center of the international agenda. The State of Qatar reiterates its firm and unwavering support for the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, including their right to self-determination, the establishment of their independent state on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, and the return of refugees in accordance with international law and relevant UN resolutions. Since the tragic events of October 7, the State of Qatar has actively engaged in mediation efforts to de-escalate tensions, facilitate humanitarian access, and advocate for the protection of civilians. As stated by His Excellency, the Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Qatar has consistently emphasized the importance of an immediate ceasefire, stopping bloodshed, protecting civilians, and preventing the expansion of the conflict. Qatar has worked closely with international partners, including Egypt and the United States, to achieve these objectives. Looking ahead, the State of Qatar will co-chair one of the working groups at the upcoming international conference on the two-state solution, which will be co-chaired by France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and held in June in New York. This conference aims to revitalize collective efforts toward the realization of a just and lasting peace. Qatar further reaffirms its call for the international community to shoulder its responsibility to end the Israeli occupation and alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people. Finally, we express our hope that this commemoration will serve as a powerful reminder of the international community's responsibility to pursue a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace in the region. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Qatar. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of the League of Arab States.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allow me to thank the General Assembly for holding this meeting to commemorate the Nakba. I would like to thank the speakers and the briefers, Mr. Khaled Khiari, Mr. Riyad Mansour, and Mr. Erakat for her exceptional statement. We have a number of challenges in the current phase that, for example, to deal with the Palestinian question. Most importantly, the ceasefire, ensuring the delivery of humanitarian assistance, ending the genocide, ensuring the implementation of the ICJ advisory opinions, and the ICC orders, improving the recognition of Palestine, and ensuring full membership of Palestine at the UN. In light of Israel's extremist government's insistence on refusing to implement the ceasefire and stopping to implement the agreement mediated by the United States, Qatar, and Egypt, the most important thing at this phase is to start implementing given UN activities. Israel has worked with impunity in this organization. From this basis, the League of Arab States believes that the Conference of the Two-State Solution, which will be held in June, is a great opportunity to stress our international will and to stress that we will continue to work during the conference to adopt tangible actions that support the implementation of the two-state solution financially, politically, economically, logistically, and in any other way. We must implement the will of the international community, namely the two-state solution. The two-state solution alliance includes around 140 states. There are many references, such as the Land for Peace Initiative. We have the Oslo Accords, the Madrid agreements, and others. All of this is a basis for a number of measures that we could take to implement the two-state solution effectively. And this is something that needs to be adopted during this conference. We look forward to the participation of member states in the preparatory meeting, and we look forward to innovative proposals and clear commitments during the consultations that will be held early until the holding of the conference. We must move from slogans to action to end the occupation, and we must support an independent Palestinian state that has been established since the adoption of the 194 resolution. We have to see it as an active member of the United Nations. This is the letter that was adopted by the Council of Ministers at the League of Arab States, and this will be adopted on Saturday, 17 May. And this message is a message that was repeated by the OIC and the non-aligned movement. There are also other groups and organizations that have adopted this message or part thereof. For example, the EU is playing a vital role in this with other international partners, and we are happy that they are supporting the Palestinian question in order to reach these objectives. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of the League of Arab States. I now invite the distinguished representative of Senegal to take the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senegal would like to take this opportunity to reiterate its active and permanent solidarity with the brother people of Palestine. Mr. Chairman, what is happening in Palestine, what has been happening for the last 70 years and what is getting worse day by day before our eyes, cannot be described in words. Inhuman acts which unfortunately seem for some people to have become the norm. Beyond words and slogans, we must act. We must act very quickly to bring an end to this tragedy so that very soon, when we celebrate the Nakba, we would be celebrating in joy the national holiday of a state of Palestine that has become a fully fledged member of the United Nations, a state of Palestine that is peaceful and prosperous. In order to achieve that, the high-level international conference on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution, which is supposed to be held in June, under the co-presidencies of France and Saudi Arabia, needs to be more than just a conference. It has to be a turning point that is action-oriented and which allows for strict respect for the rights of Palestinians. With that goal in mind, rest assured that Senegal provides its constant support to this more than just cause of Palestine, which, as you know,
remains a fundamental pillar of our foreign policy. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Senegal. Next, I invite the distinguished representative of South Africa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. At the outset, let us thank the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People for organizing this meeting. We also want to thank the speakers for their remarks. Chairperson, the 77th anniversary of the Nakba that took place in 1948 is commemorating while the International Court of Justice has pronounced that a plausible genocide is being committed against the Palestinian people, heralding a second and possibly more destructive iteration of the Nakba with blatant disregard for international law. The scale of the barbaric and unrelenting bombardments, the displacement of thousands of Palestinians, the targeting of humanitarian personnel, United Nations and civilian infrastructure, the ongoing settlement activities, the hindering of humanitarian aid and denial of basic services, food, water as a weapon of war are particularly poignant reminders of the 1948 catastrophe preceding decades-long oppression. South Africa condemns the illegal acts by Israel as the occupying power and calls for accountability for all the atrocities, the ongoing genocide, violation of human rights, and war crimes committed against the Palestinian people. Israel's continued impunity for its actions, which show blatant disregard for international law, undermines the credibility of the international system and international law, particularly given the grave nature of the violations being committed. The obligation to prevent and punish the crime of genocide is an erga-norm obligation that is owed to the international community as a whole, and was a primary motivator in South Africa's decision to bring the case of genocide before the International Court of Justice. We must be decisive in our resolve to hold those responsible for the violations of international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law, accountable, without exception. South Africa has submitted 2 dossiers to the United Nations Security Council detailing violations of international law in Gaza under documents number S/2024/419 and S/2025/130. Israel's activities in Gaza are manifest violations of international law and are in direct defiance of the International Court of Justice's provisional measures orders. We call for an immediate ceasefire, for full and unhindered access for humanitarian aid, which is desperately needed, and the implementation of the provisional measures granted by the International Court of Justice, the implementation of resolutions adopted by both the United Nations Security Council and General Assembly. Failure to implement resolutions and decisions emanating from the principal organs of the United Nations, which are indispensable in safeguarding the very existence of the Palestinian people, undermines the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. South Africa will not tire in its support for the Palestinians' quest for self-determination and an independent, contiguous Palestinian state existing side by side with the State of Israel along the 1967 borders. We stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and remain committed to their just cause. We have a responsibility to act as the international community. South Africa will continue its effort aimed at realizing a Palestinian state which will enjoy equality among all other nations of the world. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of South Africa. Next, I invite the distinguished permanent representative of Nicaragua to take the floor.
Thank you. Distinguished Chairman, before beginning, I would like to hail the heroic Palestinian people in its permanent fight for their freedom. 77 years since the permanent Nakba, really, of permanent pain, of dismemberment of Palestinian families, of this disaster that led to the violent expulsion of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homes, and that today it is the duty of the international community to assume its responsibility in the face of this injustice by providing protection and taking practical measures to implement the decisions of international legitimacy to put a stop to the genocide. Nicaragua denounces the atrocities that are being committed on occupied Palestinian territories by Israel, in particular in Gaza, which has imposed a total blockade since March without a delivery of humanitarian aid, and which has constantly inflicted the civilian population with unending bombing. 70% of fatalities are women and children. Now the government of Israel has publicly announced its intention of permanently occupying the Gaza Strip and to expel the Palestinian people, more than 2 million people. Once again, Israel has made public its intention to continue with its war crimes, genocide, and other violations of the relevant norms of international law. The states that still continue to support these crimes cannot deny their knowledge of the grave illegality of Israel's conduct, and that this generates obligations pursuant to international law. Nicaragua would like to make an appeal to all countries that are in clear violations of their obligations under international law continue to support the Israeli government politically, financially, and militarily. We make an appeal to comply with the relevant norms of international law, including the duty not to recognize as legitimate the situation created by the illegal actions of Israel, as confirmed by the International Court of Justice in its advisory opinion of July 2024. Likewise, in its order in April of 2024, the court considered it particularly important to remind all countries of their international obligations with regard to the transfer of weapons to an armed conflict in order to avoid the risk of these weapons being used to violate the Geneva Convention and the Convention on Genocide. It is essential to put a stop to the genocide, to apartheid, and to war crimes in Palestine. Nicaragua also makes an appeal to the international community to take all concrete and practical steps in line with what was stated by the International Court of Justice and the resolutions adopted by the General Assembly. Nicaragua will continue to take all action that we consider necessary to fulfill our international obligations. The Government of National Unity and Reconciliation of Nicaragua reaffirms its firm commitment and constant solidarity with the Palestinian people, with their right to return to their freedom, their self-determination, our commitment to a Palestinian state, and their right to be a fully fledged member of the United Nations. The pain of Palestine is a pain felt by all peoples around the world, and freedom of Palestine is a historic responsibility to be fulfilled. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Nicaragua. I see no other requests from member states for the floor. Before closing, I would like to invite all of you to attend the viewing of a documentary entitled From Ground Zero, filmed by 22 artists living under siege in the Gaza Strip. This powerful film offers a vital and deeply contextualized perspective beyond the brutal live stream of the war. The screening will take place in this hall at 1:15 p.m. I invite all of you to join us for the screening of the documentary. Following the screening of the documentary, we also invite you to participate in the committee's consultations with civil society organizations. It will be convened also here in the ECOSOC chamber at 3 p.m. today. If there is no other matter to be discussed, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.